could not be started. Okay, one of them can't be started. The LinkedIn doesn't want to work. That's okay. Here we are. Welcome to the Level Up Show Live. We have Miss J, and she's going to tell her story today about the flight is real. Welcome to the show, Ms. J. Tell us about your story.
Hey, thank you for having me, Pamela. The story is generally the same for most people with starting out something, but I've been doing it for such a long time. I literally can go back to when I was 13 and I started my first business, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what business was. I didn't know what entrepreneurialism was, but I did know that I wanted to make money. So that I knew there was something in my brain that said, "Hey, there's a need, fill it and make money." Fast forwarding, as you get older, you start going through the biological clock.
Right.
So I did. I got that. I went to post secondary. I put myself through college, and then I did an online course for another diploma in business management and recreation leadership, and I pursued my government career. And I did that for 30 straight years, and it was an amazing blessing for myself. But I think I got to a time where I was hitting glass ceilings, and it wasn't necessarily about being promoted, but it was about why was it the promotions and the new jobs and the new money not exciting me as much as it used to. So I had to really take a moment. One day when I woke up, I really looked at the mirror and I had to ask myself, like, who are you now? I could have told you very clearly who I was as I was going through my journey. But you get to a point where I woke up, I knew what I did. I was a mom. I knew I was a wife. I knew I had a great career happening. I was running two or three businesses at that time. I was a caregiver, etc. But that's kind of what became convoluted after a while. I didn't know what I stood for anymore. So I had to get on my own little journey. I was coaching probably for about 20 years at that time. And I had to do my own self coaching. I had to really stop and take a moment and say, well, who are you? And so 37, I said, I'm going to do a 365-day blitz. And it's just going to be about me, what I want, where I'm going, that type of thing. It ended up by day 37, I recognized that I wasn't the only woman having this crisis. A Beautiful Women Society was born because a lot of my close friends were in that same kind of mode. And that's what really just got me awake to reconnecting to what made me such a powerful person, such, a woman of excellence. It was connecting to the meditation and the journaling and more importantly, creating a community of people around me who were consistently going, flying high. So when I say the flight is real, I truly mean that, whatever we think we're flying, there's always a next altitude. And it's just
Mm.
to find that wind and catch it and ride it, until you get tired. And then you got to kind of, think about the next strategy. So that's me in a nutshell.
So there's a lot to unpack there. I heard a lot of really amazing things. And the first thing was a decision was made, whether it, we make decisions all the time, right, about
Yes.
life, but some of them come from just pure desperation. Some of them come from desire and drive and dreams.
Mhm.
And yours
Mhm.
sounded like it was maybe a little bit of both, but you then made a decision to focus on what it is that you wanted. Can you tell me about that moment? What were some of the other things that were conflicting with that thought, if at all?
I'm going to say mediocrity. That's one of the easiest things that conflicts with anything that you want to do in life. And sometimes you just don't know what you want to do, but you know what you have is not enough,
Right.
right? So I like to call it the drip effect, right? And drip stands for drive, resilience, innovation, and progression. And that was important to me because that's what fueled everything I did. But at some point, I was like, it's just not satisfying anymore. And I realized it was because I was becoming mediocre. I was just kind of relying on what I had and what I achieved. And I did so much. And, I had beautiful children, I had a beautiful relationship. So I had it all. I had what everybody, kind of wants. But then you get to a point where it's like, is it enough? I'm not saying I'm going to leave my man or anything, but
Right, right.
just becomes that, like, is what I'm doing it just not satisfying, and I felt like my drive was diminishing. I wasn't waking up with that let's go get it attitude. I was waking up more like, oh God, I gotta get through this day, and hopefully I can make it through the week, and I can't wait till Saturday. And that kind of mediocre thinking started setting in, and so I had to take a moment to purge that, and really get back on track with that drive, that get up and let's get it done
We
mentality.
know 100 people just probably looking at our phone right now that are living that life. Can you tell me what it is that made you, quote unquote, different in the sense that you chose to move towards something else versus staying where you were? What's the key there? What's the key for that?
The key is knowing that your worth is not measured by what you're doing, but it's measured by what you want to achieve. That's my belief. And I believed I could do more. And it wasn't more of the same thing. It was figuring out what needed to be let go, what needed to be pushed out, what did I outgrow, right? Because we get into a pattern of thinking that like we need to just, oh, we've hit all of our marks, but then do we stop visioning, we stop thinking about the desire to do more, which fuels the drive, and then knowing that where you got to took a lot of time and effort. It's building that resilience to say, okay, now I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna set a new goal. And how am I gonna meet that? So you have to have that level of resilience and then figure it out. I had two kids. I had
Right.
two kids, two babies, I had to take care of. And so as they got older, it got almost a little harder because I thought it would get easier. I wanted to quit my job and do my business full time. But as they got older, it was like, well, this came into play and that came into play. We needed two cars in the family. This one was doing rep ball. It was just a lot of things that started to come in the way of me. And so that decision was to put me first. Let's just reprioritize, right? What's going on here? And let me put myself in the front of this line and let me go for me first. Because at the end of the day, that's going to help them.
Right. You and I know that. I'm a mom as well. And there were times in my life where the guilt would override that desire that I would have for myself. What would you say to someone who's at that cornerstone or that crossroad in their own life?
You want to leave a legacy, make the hard choices now. Sacrifice the time now. Because later, as they get older, especially as they get older, that's when you need to spend more time with them because they're forming into little humans now. They're little humans and they have their wants and needs, and we get that. But my kids always understood when I was running a business, mommy's busy. I have to do this so that we can be better, that we can go on trips, right? And I help them to understand the reward of being supported, the reward of making sure your bed is made, making sure your room is clean, making sure you go and take a bath, and all of those types of things. Like my son was taking care of his younger brother when I had to be working late, and he would make sure that they were dressed and ready for school. And he was 8, right? And even though I was home, I was working. I helped him to understand that you can build on. So sometimes as moms, we have this quote unquote mom guilt that we're not doing everything for our kids,
Right.
but really and not we're not giving them any life skills by doing everything for our kids, right? My kids understood there was a time and place, and when mommy said let's go out and have fun, we would be out wonderland trips, Cuba, Jamaica, wherever. We were flying and and dining, right? But they understood that it took work to get that. So they did their part, I did mine, my husband did his, and we just kept winning, right? So don't feel bad about it. Don't feel bad about it. Help your children understand. No matter how young they are, you can help them to understand that mommy is doing something for us, and that's the key. In my eyes, that's the key to really understanding the power of legacy or generational wealth.
Right. So the other thing that I want to talk about before we end is 37. You got to day 37. So what I heard in that is that you actually got in and did the work and
Yes,
you on that path found your way.
yes.
Tell
I
me a little
found
bit
me.
more about the
Found me.
miracle of that. Yeah.
The miracle of me.
Right.
You recognize how powerful you are. You recognize that there is something that we are born with, an innate desire to want more. What it is, you will only find that out through leveraging and learning your skill sets of knowledge, skill, and capacity. Those are the three, the KSC. If you can understand what your knowledge base is and then applying knowledge, if you can understand what your skill levels are, go and enhance them. If you can understand capacity, then increase it. And now look at your vision board if you use one, or now sit down and take a moment to think about your life and see really what part of my realms is the weakest. So if you have a tough time with finance, have a moment there to get yourself correct on it, because that affects everything, your career, your home, whatever the case is. So when I found that I kind of had everything possible but my business, I recognized my business was no longer serving me, or my business is, right? So I had to take a real moment and step back and say, what's my desire to do something now based on who I am versus 10 years ago when I started that business. All right. And that literally, I shut down all three businesses and went Beautiful Women Society. And then in last year, I just quit. I didn't just quit, I planned. I called it early retirement, but I did. I looked at my job and I said, it's holding me back. It's holding me back from, getting where I want to be. And so I planned financially my way right out of it. And I'm happy to say I celebrated my 1 year anniversary running my business full time and helping a lot of women to do the same thing. So, so really just take a moment and just figure out, who are you now? Right. And that's my tagline. I strengthen who you are to become better at what you want to do or what you're doing. Right.
The key. So in
The
those
key.
37 days, what were you doing specifically that brought about this change?
Meditation was a big one. Just taking a moment to stop, putting dishes and laundry and, carpooling and sports and I just stopped. I just said, hey, I needed to give myself longer periods to think about, what are my values? What's my mission? What's my philosophy? What's my goals? Sometimes we just don't hear ourselves. we we're just always in the noise. We're in the noise, and then we get up one day and it's like, that's why when we go to a spa or something, we're like, oh my god, like we release because
Right.
there's nothing around us that we're responsible for but ourselves. The other thing I did was journaling. Avid journaler for many, many, many decades. Um, I always say journal subjectively so you can review and reflect objectively. So when I was in my feelings and I'm upset about something or I was not feeling super hot or whatever, I'd get in my journal and then I'd start, writing, and going from there. But then looking back on my journal, I recognize, wow, there's a pattern here, a
Right.
pattern forming of neglect of myself, right? Pattern forming in communication, a pattern form. So I was able to start identifying those patterns and start crushing them and making some changes. So those are the two biggest ones, and long walks, a lot of long walks.
Very powerful. Tell us a little bit about who you help.
I help women who are exactly like me. My target market is me. And those are ambitious women who are selfless and give up so much to make sure everybody else's worlds are spinning. And when you get to a point where you have a dream but you don't know how to manifest it because you may not have taken the time to keep up with the trend, with your knowledge, skill, or capacity, or you're not taking enough time to just sit and think about really what you want, those are the type of women I love helping. Extremely ambitious, want to fly, and that's why when I started the society and I created my Empire program, if you know, the name alone, I wanted it to resound. We're here to build empires. I'm not really a small business owner type of person. I want people who want big and no, it will take some time to get there, but we're creating something that we can leave behind in the society that our children will grow up in, or just for people in general.
And what's the first thing you do when you start working with someone?
The first thing I do is a business plan. So actually, before the business plan, the first thing I ask them is, who are they?
Yeah,
And they
that's
stutter through that for a good while. And then they say, Miss
right.
Gia, that's a hard question. And I say, yes, it is. I've been there, done that, understand it. But I start there. And then from there, I go into their vision and then I take them through the planning process to get there.
I think that's what makes you so fabulous is that you've got that step out front before we go into, the marketing and what are we going to do on Instagram, right? Like kind of idea. Who are you to show up
100%.
on Instagram? Very powerful. How can we find you?
You can find me on the necessary platforms, website, pretty much all the same, beautifulwomensociety.com on the website, Beautiful Women Society on my IG. Those are the two most popular. Miss J Wholeness on LinkedIn. You can find me Facebook. I'm not a big avid user, but you'll find me there under Miss J as well, or Beautiful Women Society, the page.
Beautiful Woman
And
Society, right?
men with the E. So
Yeah,
yeah,
women.
beautiful women. Sorry, I say women sometimes, but it's Women's Society.
Yes.
Yes. So you can find me there, or you can send out a courier pigeon or whatever. You'll find me.
Right. And reach out to me if you can't. I can definitely hook you up. And
Talk to
what's
Pam, right?
right? And what's one last piece of advice that you would give to someone who is where you were and really has a desire to do more, but
Call
has no
me.
idea?
Call me.
Exactly.
Call me
Pardon me,
because you know
that one
what?
was put.
Yeah, I think a lot of times women, I didn't have as much mentors growing up as some others, coaches and this and that,
Right.
because a lot of people in my community didn't know nothing about entrepreneurialism to tell me to go this direction or not. School didn't lead me that way. College didn't even lead me that way. It was me a desire too. And if I had the proper coaching and guidance when I first started business development, I would be a multi millionaire today. I know that. I right. So
Right.
the way to really, get to where you're going, break the learning curve, get a coach, and
You used
one
the
that
word
works.
community.
Pardon?
You used the word community.
100%. The three C's of
Yes.
my business is the key
Yes.
pillars is commitment, consistency, and community.
Community.
Right? So if you get committed to your dream and you stay consistent in the process and you surround yourself with the right community, your dreams manifest, your vision manifests
It
because you
does.
have that constant energy and environment that's feeding you the win, right? And I'm a very competitive person and I believe I compete with challenges in life. Like bring it because I'm going to
You
kick
could feel
your
that with you. It's so exciting. That's what I wanted to try to tap into with people was like, what it makes you different? Because you and I talk to business owners all the time, and it's like, what is that piece that makes it really work for you? Like, what is it that you're bringing to the table? And
yeah,
the biggest thing I think I'd like to leave the conversation with was what I heard was you feel you are worth it and you deserve it. And I think,
100%.
yes, and I think that if there's work to be done, it's that. And then
Yes,
I think the rest of the pieces kind of fall into place on that
yeah,
path as we're moving. But feeling
100%.
like you're worth it, it really
Yeah.
matters.
But and being honest with yourself. A lot of people are not honest with themselves, right? So they come to me, they're telling me their mantras and their affirmations, and I'm like, okay, great. How much have you actually done with all of these mantras and affirmations? Or sorry, I would say mantras. You say
Right,
that right,
right,
right? You know what I mean? And a lot of them, it's just words that make them feel good in the moment. And when you can be honest with yourself to say, I'm being lazy, I'm procrastinating, I'm disorganized, I deprioritize. If you can understand who you are in that moment, now you have a map to make a change,
right,
right?
right.
If you're unorganized or disorganized, then come, let me teach you how to be organized. And I focus a lot of my coaching around skill sets, right? Not necessarily the business. I tell people, you know your craft. I don't have to tell you how to braid here or build this or deliver that
Right,
service, but you don't have the right skill sets. And that's why you're struggling to make it to the next level of your game.
right.
Yeah.
Well, thank
So
you so much for being on the
thank
show.
you.
I am
Appreciate it.
very, very grateful, and we will talk again.
We will, and I can't
Join
wait to
us.
have you on something that I'm hosting at some point.
That'll be so exciting. So join us for the Level Up Show live. This is what she looks like. We bring on fabulous guests. Thanks for being here.
Take care, Pam. Enjoy. I enjoyed it.